It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Bet smarter with daily advice from America's leading handicapper, Lee Sterling of Paramount Sports on the Locked On Bets podcast. Follow Locked On Bets today on the Odyssey app or wherever you get podcasts. You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to this Tuesday evening episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. Today we have a very special guest on the podcast. He's been on here, I think, twice. I think that sounds about right. Doug Gladkey from Penguins Twitter. It's always a pleasure to have him on. He has not been on, I don't think, in a few months now. So I figured I could get him on here and talk about the team the last couple of weeks and the games on Wednesday and Thursday and the Islander series moving forward. And I'm sure some trade talk will come up as well. And yes, there are a few mailbag questions to get to as well. But Doug, first off, how you doing, man?
I've been doing pretty good, man. How about you?
Not bad. We're getting closer, I think, to the end of this. And, Virginia announced today that there's going to be 30% capacity at outdoor venues. So hopefully that means some concerts this summer, because that's the first thing I think I want to go to once this all wraps up. But, we are going to talk, obviously, hockey on this podcast. This is a hockey podcast. I was watching the Devils-Flyers game tonight, and for those that are unaware, the Flyers are down 4-1 to New Jersey right now. I think at the end of the second period, Philadelphia is in a giant free fall, and it looks like the Penguins almost may make the playoffs on virtue of default if they just go 500 the rest of the way. Just going back to these last three New Jersey games, Doug, are you a bit upset that the Penguins only took 3 points out of 6, or was that kind of like a miracle considering half their lineup is basically AHL lines?
I mean, as irritating as it is, it's one of those things where the fact that you're able to get points to begin with the bottom 6 that you're running right now is rather miraculous. So, I mean, we got to just take the points any way we can get them. Mm-hmm. The thing that I was most frustrated about was Sunday whenever they took them into overtime. Like, even though your lineup's super depleted and you're basically running NHL creative players in your bottom 6, you need to be able to beat a team like New Jersey in regulation, get those 2 points. But, I mean, I think they did okay. Obviously, Brandon Tanev getting hurt in warm-ups over the weekend didn't help them at all. He's really, and I mean, I'm eating crow on this big time, but he's really like the glue that keeps this team together in terms of like the speed and tenacity factor.
Yeah, he's been awesome this season. I think he has 7 goals so far, halfway through the season. He's had a bit more offensive juice this year than you saw last year. I think that was the main thing that people harped on him after this past season. His first season on that 6-year contract was that he didn't score enough. This season, he's kind of, like I said, he's been a lot better in that regard. And, he's obviously see how fast he is and how tenacious he is to the puck. He was not at practice today, so it sounds like he's probably going to be out for Wednesday night's game unless he participates in the morning skate. Yeah, I mean, and you hit the nail on the head there. They should have won that game in regulation. But honestly, Doug, as I was watching that, the team looked gassed after the first 30 minutes. I'm playing 5 games in 7 nights. I mean, that's just very hard to do. The team obviously needed an off day. They had one yesterday, got back to practice today. I'm glad that they took 3 points out of 4 in those back-to-backs, especially after losing in regulation to New Jersey on Thursday. I thought Pittsburgh outplayed them that game, but then I also thought on the Saturday game they played a lot better. And then even on Sunday, I thought their effort that game was better than the one they showed on Thursday. But, New Jersey is also, I don't think, as bad as their record indicates. If you take away their losses against the Flyers, against the Islanders, I think they're like 10-9-3, 10-10-4 against the rest of the division. I mean, that's a team that's almost 500. And, they have a lot of good pieces down there. Obviously, it starts with Jack Hughes. I know the Penguins have struggled against New Jersey in recent years under Mike Sullivan. It feels like their record is like 5-20 against them because of just their struggles against them, whether it's in Pittsburgh or New Jersey. Obviously, they struggle with Newark, but even in Pittsburgh, the team seems to struggle against them. But this team, they're not going to go anywhere until they get healthier. But if they can just get some positive results until Malkin and Blueger come back, and Zucker obviously being back skating, especially with a taxi squad, is huge. If they just go 500 the rest of the way until some of these guys come back, they can really make a run at the end of the season.
Yeah, I agree. It's all about just treading water until, you get those guys back and potentially make a trade, and then you get yourself into striking distance. Because you got 2 games coming up against Buffalo tomorrow and Thursday, and then this weekend you have the Islanders. And it's like those are teams like, the Islanders have been playing really good recently, but they've been playing against like the New Jerseys, the Buffaloes, teams like that. And, those are teams that the Penguins could easily just take points away from, get some wins, and like their schedule the rest of the year is fairly easy. I think that once we get into April here, dude, it's going to be really interesting, and they're just going to be able to take off, get healthy, and kind of do this on their own terms.
Yeah, I agree with that. The schedule is pretty soft until you get to the end of April, I think, where they play Washington a couple more times. I think they have Boston at the end, and then they actually finish up the season with Buffalo, but they still have some games against the Rangers. Still have 4 more left against Boston. I think after the Islanders, I think they play Boston going into next week. But yeah, the schedule is soft overall these next 6 weeks. It's the perfect, if there's a great time, Doug, for all these players to be hurt, it's right now, especially with a back-to-back coming up against Buffalo. Yes, Buffalo has lost, what is it now? Is it 12 in a row, 14 in a row? Something along those lines. You obviously don't want to be the team that, they snap their losing streak against. The Penguins should be able to take care of business in these 2 games. You look at Buffalo's goaltending. I guess we'll transition to that right now before the commercial break. Doug, they're down to like their 4th string, 5th string, 6th string goalie. Obviously, Johansson got dealt. Carter Hutton is hurt. Olmark is still hurt, but he's practicing. He's not going to play in these next 2 games. They're going to start Dustin Tokarski, I think, on Wednesday, and then some other make-a-name goalie on Thursday who I don't even know who it is. And, of course, they're without Jack Eichel, who he might be out for the rest of the season. And, of course, the Penguins still have Buffalo. After these 2 games, they have them 4 more times. So they've had a nice part of the schedule here. They're still banking some points, but if they can really bank these 4 points this week, especially with the Flyers losing tonight, they could potentially be 10 points up on the Flyers, even though the Flyers would have a couple games in hand. It would be getting close to it being over at that point.
Yeah, I'm with you. Get these 2 wins out of the way. Hopefully, you come away with 2 wins. I don't want to jinx it because you know how this team is against like weird goalies. They just got destroyed by Scott Wedgwood the other night. But they're we've come a long way from the beginning of the year where we had that doom and gloom time period. There was a time where I was sitting on my couch thinking, might be time to make a coaching change or explore it. And then GMJR kind of bailed, and things have the ship's kind of righted itself since then.
Yeah, ever since Hextall and Burke have taken over, the team has just been so much better in all areas, except, of course, getting hurt. And it looks like I already said, Brandon Tanev probably won't play tomorrow. But we were talking about this before we went live here, Doug. Jason Zucker already being back skating, practicing with the taxi squad in full equipment. That's a huge deal, considering it looked like he was going to be out potentially for like the rest of the regular season, but it looks like he might be ahead of schedule.
Yeah, that's a big thing. And, the thing is with Zucker is I feel like he's very kind of like a split bag amongst the fan base, but like regardless of what you think of him, man, like that is a big weapon to bring back into a lineup that's this depleted. Mm-hmm. Like running a Zucker, McCann, Kapanen second line right now would be huge.
Yeah, it would give the Penguins an actual good, competent second line. But, the second line, before we do go to commercial break, I want to get your thoughts on this as well. They made some line changes at practice on Tuesday, and they elevated Aston Reese up with McCann and Kaplan. And I honestly don't even know why they didn't do that on Sunday, Doug. That for some reason they wanted to have Evan Rodriguez up there, even though Aston Reese is the better player. What are your thoughts on Aston Reese being elevated with McCann and Kaplan moving forward?
Yeah, you can't really spread it out as much as, Sully would want to. Mm-hmm. I think we're at a point now where there's so many injuries where it's like you need to put your 6 most competent NHL forwards in the top 6 and keep them there. And you're not breaking up the Crosby line, so just bump Aston Reese up, put Rodriguez down that bottom 6 role, and just see what happens, because I'd imagine this top 6 is going to get ran like dogs these next couple of days until Tanev gets back and other guys start to work themselves back into the lineup, because what they have down there on the bottom 2 lines, man, it's not good.
Yeah, when your Mark Jankowski is your third line center, and when Sam Lafferty is getting meaningful minutes and being on the ice for 6-on-5 opportunities against, like he was last week against Boston, you know your depth is in a bad place. But we have a whole lot more to get to for this episode of Locked On Penguins. Before we do that, it is time to talk about RockAuto.com. It's a family business serving auto part customers online for 20 years. You can go to RockAuto.com to shop for auto and body parts from hundreds of manufacturers. The catalog on the site is unique and very easy to navigate. You can quickly see all the parts available for your vehicle and choose the brands, specifications, and prices you prefer. Best of all, prices at RockAuto.com are always reliably low, and the same professionals and do-it-yourselfers. Why should you spend up to twice as much of the same parts? You can go to RockAuto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck, and you can write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low price, all the parts your car will ever need. That's RockAuto.com. All right, welcome back to this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm your host, Hunter Hody. So, Doug, let's get into some trade talk here. This is one of my favorite times of the year. 20 days away is the trade deadline. It is unusually quiet, but good reason. A lot of teams do not want to take on money. Obvious reason, the COVID-19 pandemic is still very much here, and teams owners do not want to take on a lot of added salary. Though I do think the Penguins, it might be a bit different with Mario Lemieux and Ron Burkle, because when I read Hextall's interview last week with Seth Rohrbach and a few others, it sounds like that they've given him the permission to add some salary and that they don't really care. So that's good news moving forward. Though I think with this deadline, Hextall's going to be a bit more patient than Jim Rutherford. I think at this point, Rutherford would have traded like Nathan Legary for like a third-line center, like a fourth-line winger or something like that with his trade history. But, when you look at some of these players that are available, obviously we've been talking a lot about Anthony Mantha. But there's one name that I saw was mentioned on The Athletic yesterday. I know you talked about it to me last night too. Sam Reinhart. Buffalo is basically doing a fire sale. Almost everyone there is available. You look at Sam Reinhart, obviously one of their better players on the team. I think in the article they tried to say that he can play center. No, he is a pure winger. I don't think he's played center at all as long as he's been in Buffalo. I could be mistaken, but I think I've mostly just seen him on the wing. I think he's under contract for 1 more year, if that sounds right, and then you're gonna have to pay him. I think it's gonna take a lot to get him out of there. But just what are your thoughts on that? Just because you saw the Jimmy Murphy tweet.
I think it would be really interesting to bring Sam Reinhart in here, but I don't really see how much sense it makes, because he's making 5.2 for the rest of this year. Then he's a restricted free agent again, and you're either going to go to arbitration with him, or you're going to give him some sort of a long-term or a bridge deal where he's probably making above $6 million. And right now, I don't think this team is equipped to take on another $5 million plus player, especially with the defense being assembled the way it is. You'd almost have to trade Marcus Pettersson in a trade like this, and I don't know if I want to do that right now. But in theory, it makes sense. It'd be that nice right-handed shot. You could put him at the left half wall in the power play, kind of finally replace Phil Kessel in a sense. But I don't know, man. All these big names keep popping up, and it doesn't make sense to me, but something's telling me there's something going on that we don't know about.
Yeah, Ron, he doesn't usually let a lot of information leak out, or at least that's what I read in Philadelphia. He also doesn't talk to the media that much, so he's probably just working in the shadows a bit here. I mean, I would love Sam Reinhart, but I think it would cost even more than Marcus Pettersson. Honestly, man, I think you'd probably be looking at trading Brian Dumoulin, and that's obviously something that the Penguins will never do. You don't send Brian Dumoulin over in a trade for Sam Reinhart, especially with Reinhart only having 1 year left on his contract, and you probably won't even be able to pay him. And the fact that the Penguins are so up against the cap anyway that I don't even know how that works. If you want a different player out of Buffalo, we were talking about this as well, man. Go get Eric Stahl. He is a perfect fit for the third line center thing. And when this team is fully healthy, obviously a lot of these players in the bottom six go out. But even you could take Evan Rodriguez out and put him with Eric Stahl in there, and you could go something like Gensel, Crosby, Rust. If you want to go McCann, Malkin, Kapanen, Zucker, Stahl, and Zucker, Stahl, and I mean, you're not going to change up the Aston Blueger Tanev line. I'm probably forgetting a winger that for some reason it's late at night. I'm not really sure who else.
Rodriguez.
Yeah, I guess they would have to put Evan there, but I thought they would have had someone else to go in. But I guess it would be Evan Rodriguez. So, I'm being stupid right now. This is great radio, everyone. I apologize for this. So, yeah, I think it would go, Zucker, Stahl, Rodriguez. And then I think we're really cooking with something there.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I've been trying to, explain to everybody since it's kind of gained traction within the local media is that Zucker and Stahl have great chemistry together already. I'm don't quote me on this, but I'm quite sure that they played together in Minnesota.
I believe they did.
Because in the 17-18 season, Stahl had 42 goals and Zucker scored 33 goals. And that was on a line together, and that has the makings of making that next great third line HBK line type of grouping where you need to make that happen if you're going to win a Stanley Cup. I mean, we know this. We've had incredible third line centers every time we've won a Stanley Cup, and it seems like every time we underachieve or barely make the playoffs, we have either somebody really underachieving or we have Derek Brassard whining on the sidelines like a piss baby.
Yeah, the whole Derek Brassard situation, that truly was something else when they acquired him, because I loved that trade, and then he just played like a total idiot on the ice. It was honestly just terrible to watch. But I agree with what you said, man. Every time the Penguins have won a Stanley Cup in the Sid Gino era, they had a center like Jordan Stahl or Nick Bonino, and they haven't replaced Bonino since he left. And getting someone like Eric Stahl, I know it's a rental, and I know Hextall isn't too keen on sending picks and prospects for rentals. At least I read that last week. I think that this is a move he would have to make, because I would not, I wouldn't mind someone like Jared McCann as the third line center, but I think the way he's played on wing this year, especially with Malkin and Kapanen, I think that's the line you stick with moving forward when he comes back, and then you can just do the Aston Blueger Tanev line as your fourth line and actually give them the minutes that they should be getting so they can dominate with their underlying numbers. And then you have a competent third line, and you can put Jason Zucker out there with an actual good center install, and then Rodriguez can thrive down there because his underlyings are not bad overall. He just does not work in a top six role and never has. Finally, though, Doug, before we get to the next segment, who's your number one player, on your wish list for the deadline, and do you actually think the Penguins will make a move?
So, my 1A, 1B is Stahl and then Anthony Mantha. I think Anthony Mantha is a lot more attainable than, maybe trying to make a move for a Sam Reinhart. He's making 5.75 for the next 3 seasons after this one. And I think that's somebody that you could easily squeeze in, because going into next year, POJ is most likely going to end up playing with John Marino. And I'd have no problem paying picks and or other assets for Seattle to take Mike Matheson off our hands. I could live with a Ricola Friedman third pairing for next season if it meant that we had another quality weapon on a second or a third line right wing, and then Eric Stahl, obviously that's my guy. He's been my guy for a while. Yeah, he's a rental, but I could see him like taking another 1-year deal, similar to like how Matt Cullen was whenever he first came over to Pittsburgh.
Good point. Yep.
He just, if it works well and they do go get a ring, just sign back on and keep chasing those rings, buddy, because, he's been an incredible player his entire career, except for that short time period where he was with the Rangers. He's been just steady and rock solid, but he only has 1 cup ring. So go get him one more, maybe more, and solidify his legacy as one of the best, most underrated players of this era.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And he's still a productive player too. And, obviously the Penguins love the Stahl brothers. They obviously won a cup with Jordan, and now getting Eric to come to Pittsburgh would be awesome. And honestly, I don't even think the price to get him would be as high as someone like Reinhart, or obviously like Buffalo's going to maybe look at Eichel, but I know Pittsburgh's not in on that for obvious reasons. A team like the Rangers or the Kings have the assets to make that work. But before we do get to the next segment, we have to touch on a couple things, one of them being BetOnline. It's the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Football might be over, but the NBA, college basketball, and the NHL are in full swing. BetOnline even covers awards, TV shows, and reality TV. You can get real-time updated odds and props on almost anything you can imagine. Has you covered for all the news, scores, and odds. It's the best way to place your bets, and it's free to sign up for. You can head to the website betonline.ag or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts, with promo code LOCKEDON. And finally, we cannot forget about Built Bar March Madness. We've been telling you about Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar on the market for a while now. It's the amazing low calorie, low sugar, high protein, and high fiber, amazing tasting protein bar with 100% chocolate on all bars. Today's matchup, we are into the Elite Eight. 3 of the matchups are finalized. Cookies and cream versus coconut almond, mint brownie versus coconut puff, cookie dough chunk versus birthday cake. But today's matchup, we're going to be getting the coconut brownie chunk versus lemon almond cheesecake, and now the winner of that will go on to play the caramel brownie in the last Elite Eight matchup. I'm a big fan of the lemon almond cheesecake. If that doesn't win, then, shame on all the voters. You can go to BuiltBar.com or bar_built on Twitter. Remember to use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 50% off your next order. That's LOCKED15 to get 15% off your next order at BuiltBar.com, and check back to see who won today's matchup and who will become the best tasting protein bar. All right, Doug. So for this last segment, I put out a tweet on the Locked On Penguins Twitter account. Just get a few mailbag questions in here. I figured I would ask you a couple these as well, since I wanted to have you on the podcast tonight. Thomas Nevitt has an interesting one here. Doug, do you think that Radim Zohorna would be a good fit to move up from Wilkes-Barre and play for the Penguins? If so, who do you drop to allow Zohorna a chance to play? It looks like he might be in the lineup tomorrow night, and honestly, man, this team desperately needs fresh youth in the lineup. Mark Jankowski and Sam Lafferty have not been hit. I liked what I saw from Frederick Gaudreau these last couple of games. He deserves a spot in the lineup every night until the team gets healthy. And honestly, I'd probably have him as the 13th forward right now. But what are your thoughts on Zohorna, and do you think he could be just a good option for the Penguins moving forward?
I think that I'd be willing to explore giving Zohorna a chance right now, just for like the size factor. I mean, this guy is built, man. He's 6'6", 225, and he was scoring really good in the Czech men's league he was playing in during the stoppage. He had 22 points in 21 games, and I think that that's something he's really that's good momentum that he's run with going into Wilkes this year. He has 9 points in 11 games. I think it's worth exploring. I think he could be one of those random people who ends up being like a cult hero in Pittsburgh, has a really good year or two, and then kind of just falls off.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited. I hope he does make his debut. I'm assuming it's probably going to be on the 4th line or something like that. But like I just said a couple minutes ago, man. I mean, the sooner a player like Jankowski or Lafferty get out of the lineup, the better this team will be. I think a player like Zohorna, who played well in that Czech league and who's played well in Wilkes-Barre, can really give this team some jump. And, if he scores the team's first bottom 6 goals since Nam tomorrow or on Thursday, it would not be surprising in the slightest, just because this team can't seem to buy a goal from their bottom 6 right now, unless it's from Zach Aston Reese. A couple others here. This comes from Fiona. Doug, this is a good question. if you could bring one player back that's still in the league if there was no money issues, who would you bring back?
Oh, like somebody who played for the Penguins.
Yeah, I don't think that's just the rules, but I think it could be anyone.
Okay, this is interesting.
So that's still in the league. So if you that, I guess that maybe that played for the Penguins. I guess we'll just go with that. So that's a tough one for me.
All right. I mean, I've said this for years. I would bring back Jordan Staal in a heartbeat, man.
Yeah,
I don't know why. I'm like, I have this weird emotional attachment to Jordan Staal, and I would do anything for him to come back if money were not an issue.
I love it. I still hate that, he kind of forced his way out to go play with his brother and really hasn't won anything in Carolina, even though it's been a great fit for him there. Obviously, his family likes it quite a bit. I'm probably going to have to go Phil Kessel, man. I loved watching him here. He was a point-per-game player in the regular season a couple times, point-per-game player in the playoffs virtually every time the Penguins made it. Folk Hero was hilarious with the media, and his play on the power play just made it so much more vaunted, and they have not replaced him on that in his spot, ever since he left. And, I know that trade brought over Pierre-Olivier Joseph, and he's going to be a mainstay on this defense for many years to come. But I'd still go Phil. Nick Bonino would probably be up there too. Obviously, Jordan Staal. If you were still in the league, I'd say Marian Hossa. Sorry, I don't have a lot of hard feelings toward Marian Hossa. I don't. It was funny as hell that he lost in 2009 when he went to the Red Wings. I'll always love that, but seeing him play with Sidney Crosby for a couple of years was something else.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like
not for a couple of years. Excuse me, a couple months. Excuse me. Go ahead.
Yeah, a couple months. I feel like people disrespect Hossa similar to the way people disrespect Yager. And it's like he was doing what he had to do. Like he was trying to get a ring, get done, and get himself, basically solidify his legacy. I mean, I thought he was awesome here. It would have been great for him to stay, but think of it this way, dude. If Hossa stayed, we don't have that weird chain reaction of just random wingers coming in and out of here that got us to Phil Kessel.
Yeah, that's very accurate. So I guess in hindsight, I'm glad he didn't stay. But man, it would have been something if he did. I would have loved watching him for many years. Yeah, but I'm glad. Like I said, I'm glad he didn't though, just because a franchise obviously has a couple more cups than they may otherwise would not have today. Here's a good one from Alan. He feels like he might be in the minority on this. He says, I'd rather give up points to New Jersey and Buffalo than Washington, Boston, the Islanders, and Philadelphia. Is this a good or bad take? Honestly, Alan, that's a great take. Giving a point to New Jersey, I really don't care about. Yes, they're playing some okay hockey right now, but they're way too far back in the standings. And if the Penguins bank points against any of the three bottom teams in the division, and they give away a point or two at sometimes to a couple other of those teams, but win, I don't see the problem with it. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of I actually agree. If you give away a point to any of those three non-playoff teams of the Rangers, the Devils, and the Sabres, it's really doing not much harm at this point. But obviously, like if you do go to overtime with them, I would prefer that you win the game in overtime rather than lose it, because I don't want them to basically flush a point in the standings that they need down the toilet against a team that's that bad.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I don't want to have these 3-point games against the Islanders. They have two huge ones coming up against them. And the Penguins, last time the Islanders came to Pittsburgh, the Penguins took all 4 points against them. I'm not sure that's going to be the same this time, but the Penguins have also played the Islanders really well this season, 4-2. Lastly, this is kind of a joke question from Pens_67, but we got to answer it. He said just kidding at the end, but I'm still going to answer it, and I want you to as well. What's the over-under on Penguins fan shots tomorrow? I'm probably going to have to go 5 over-under. I know they've been fanning on a lot lately just because the bottom 6 is so bad, but I think that's my number for now. But I thought I'd end the podcast on a funny note.
Yeah, I'm going 7.
Okay.
I'm going 7.
A little bold.
Yeah.
A little bold, but I like it, Thank you for that very funny question. I know you put the just kidding at the end, but I felt like I had to answer just to leave you all with something funny to look forward to. But, Doug, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I really appreciate it. Where can everyone find you on Twitter for your awesome Pens takes?
Just follow me on Twitter at Doug_Gladkey. You're going to find daily random trade content on there. And yeah, I mean, I tweet about hockey a lot, and you're gonna see some interesting takes. That's for certain.
Yes, yeah, he does have some very interesting takes, but most of the time, they're all very good. So yes, please go follow him. And my next episode, it will be a post-game episode after tomorrow night's game. Remember, the Wednesday night game is an 8 o'clock start because for some reason the Minnesota Wild are playing at 5:30 on NBC Sports Network. So I guess they're just trying to have everyone watch the game while eating dinner. And then the Penguins will play on Thursday, 7 p.m. That one will not be nationally televised. But Doug, again, thank you so much for coming on, and I will talk to you all tomorrow evening.